No? Ready to go? All right, okay. Do I have a motion to reconvene the regular meeting?
Motion approved.
Second? It's been motioned by Dr. Shimon Rogers and second by Dr. Shaw. Roll call.
Johnson?
Yes.
Navarro?
Yes.
Shaw?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Morcott? Jamal Rogers?
Yes.
Lopez Caniva?
Yes. All right, if we'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And Mr. William Kane, if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Resolutions.
Good evening, everyone. If I could have Justin Warchek please come on up here. This resolution is recognizing Justin Warchek for achieving Eagle Scout status. Whereas Justin Warchek, a junior student at Lockport Township High School District 205, has achieved Eagle Scout status, the highest rank awarded by the Boy Scouts of America, for his project creating a vinyl fence to keep cats and dogs safe while meeting potential owners at the Naws Animal Shelter in Mokina. And whereas Justin Warchek has brought honor and distinction to himself, his family, school, and community, and Troop 318, and now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lockport Township High School District 205, Will County, Illinois, that Justin Warchek is hereby recognized for achieving the prestigious rank of Eagle Scout from the Boy Scouts of America on the 16th day of October, 2023. We're going to take a picture, okay? One, two, and three. Perfect. Congratulations, Justin. One more round of applause for Justin. If I could please have Braden Deblacourt, Allison McNulty, and Brian Sagan, please come on up. This resolution is recognizing the National Merit Commended Students. Whereas Braden Deblacourt, Allison McNulty, and Brian Sagan are current senior students at Lockport Township High School District 205 and have earned the status of commended students. And whereas Braden, Allison, and Brian have earned the highest scores among 50,000 students nationally who took the PSAT and MSQT qualifying test. And whereas Braden, Allison, and Brian have brought honor and distinction to themselves, their family, school, and community by achieving this respected status. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lockport Township High School District 205, Will County, Illinois, that this resolution be adopted on the 16th day of October, 2023.
Thank you.
Great, congratulations. Thank you. All right, want to take a picture? Yeah. Open up your certificate. 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. And if I could please have Mr. Kane come on up. The crickets are even clapping. This resolution is recognizing science teacher William Kane. Whereas Lockport Township High School teacher William Kane was selected the 2023 Illinois Science Teacher Association Science Educator of the Year. That's pretty cool. And whereas William Kane was chosen from a select group of talented Illinois science educators by the Illinois Institute of Technology's Rice Campus in Wheaton, Illinois on September 29, 2003. And whereas William Kane has brought honor and distinction to himself, his family, school, and community by achieving this respected status. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lockport Township High School District 205, Will County, Illinois, that this resolution was adopted on the 16th day of October, 2023. Congratulations.
On behalf of the Board of Education, I just wanted to thank, congratulations to Justin, Braden, and Allison and Brian. Thank you, and also to Mr. King. You've done such an outstanding job, and also to the parents too, because I know it's a testament to the accomplishments of these students. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. All right, thank you.
Yeah, congrats.
All right, at this moment, we're going to be conducting our board business. So I know that some of you students, I know they have homework to do, so you are excused.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats.
Congratulations.
You're not gonna, you vote to recognize.
Ms. Osei, Ms. Del Ponte, good to see you joining us. Hope you're both doing well this evening.
It almost doesn't sound real. It almost sounds like a phone. It sounds fake. I thought it was somebody's ringtone. When it was
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
I would just move ahead and have these guys do the,
All right, do I have a motion, I'm sorry, do I have a motion to accept the resolutions as presented?
So moved.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and seconded by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Okay. All right, moving on to our reports. Student government.
Hi, I'm Gianna Frieri, and I want to talk about, at our last meeting, we learned that students are really engaged in the activities at the school, and they really want more class activities, whether that's inside school or outside school. A lot of students mentioned pep rallies or more events like Senior Sunrise for other classes, because they just really want to engage with more of their classmates. Do you guys have anything to add?
You know what, going on to that, events like, sorry, I'll introduce myself, I'm Lee Musini, I'm a junior. Going on to that, the events-wise, you know, people love Senior Sunrise, and it's like a senior event, you know. If we could have something more towards, you know, like each class, and then classes as a group together, events like, more like Senior Sunrise, where you have seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen together, I think it really helped the bond strengthen with each group, you know. So something like that would be nice as well.
Yeah, overall, we were just seeing that students wanted more opportunities to get together with, like, kids in their class outside of school. It was really good, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a lot of good feedback from everyone, so,
Yes.
yeah.
Heard lots of good things about the separate
Main gym.
main gym.
Yeah,
Yes,
so that
right.
was a nice
Yeah, I
addition.
heard lots of good things. A couple complaints, but mostly good.
and do all the board members know what was happening in the main gym? You aware of that? I don't know if you need a description from these guys, sort of more of a chill space than kind of a
Yeah.
louder boom production. So, you know, if you have any questions for them or descriptions, you know, they were there, they would know.
Another thing too is that we were able to have water this year. So like going into the gym, you were actually able to go in and get water, which I think was really nice after the dance, because inside the field house it can get like really hot and you get really dehydrated. So being able to get water this time was really nice.
So I know we talked to a couple of parents, or students here. And I know that some of them, said that they preferred it to be outside than inside. Did, again, it was because of COVID, we had it outside, but now.
Yeah, and we got a couple student feedback where, they can, they wish they had it outside as well, because it's a larger space and, but, with outside, weather is not, always the option and, but, the main gym and the field house were, good additions and, the main gym was a good addition, so.
Yeah.
People who complain about when we have the dances outside.
Yeah, there's a difference in opinions.
Yeah, when we took a vote, like just overall, student government did vote that they'd rather have it outside. But we'd have to figure out if that's possible for next year.
I did stop by the dance to see the setup because I was interested, and I'm just impressed at the amount of thought that went into the setup. So whoever was involved in that, I appreciate that, and then the number of staff members that came to coordinate that event was also very impressive. So.
Yeah. I'd like to add on with something different. So lunch lines, we have, our last meeting. So we had students, just talking about panini lines and how long it would take for them to get, paninis. I know we made a change from this year to last year, moving it. But a lot of students are still experiencing issues where, it's taking them forever to get one and, they only have 5 minutes. So they either take it to homeroom or if they're not lucky to get it in homeroom, they, just don't eat lunch for the day. So they're wondering if, we could make, an addition or, something that could be more efficient towards, getting students lunch and especially paninis faster. Or, and we know, like I said, we made that change from last year. But like I said, they're just experiencing the same issues and the slowdowns. As well as that, they were wondering if we could do more like a cash option versus a student account option. So we could have separate lines in each lunch line. So it could be more efficient towards students and, just have like that time saving effort as well as getting lunch quicker. Anyone want to add anything?
I'll add to that. We've had some students tell us that that some periods aren't allowed to like get up like before the bell and like line up, and that causes some students to be late to their next class. But like some periods are, and it just seems like it's an issue to some students because they want to get to their class on time, but the deans won't let them stand up to get to their next class.
Yeah, to add on it too, when we do our student government meetings, we kind of focused on like board feedback, like problem and solution feedback. So for the lunch issue, like the lines being too long, we're trying to like streamline that process by creating like the 2-step lines for like cash and then an account card. And then about the lunch periods, like leaving early, maybe just like trying to figure out to make it more consistent over the periods, like that all kids either have to sit down or all kids like can get up and be ready before the bell leaves.
One more thing to add off of that, off of lunch. A lot of students were wondering if we could add like a cash option to the Porter Cafe, because they like the online option, but and it's more efficient that way. I understand, but a lot of students don't have ways of paying online or stuff like that. So they were wondering if we could add like a cash option to include to that.
Any questions?
Another topic to talk about is the student splash page. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on this? Why do you need to stand up? Why,
Yeah. So I experienced this myself because in our lunch period, they let us stand up, usually 3 minutes before the bell. So, instead of, having that rush where, every student just stands up at the time of the bell rings, and having that congestion there, you're basically lined up and ready for, to leave, so you get your place in line, and once that bell is dismissed, the students, and you have like a head start, kind of, once you're up, instead of, sitting down.
But don't you still have the issue with, people in the hallway? Everybody trying to.
The traffic, so it is the same, well, once you're up, you really have like a more, quicker way of getting down the hallway. But, the way the lunchroom is designed is the seats are here and then the hallway's down there. So if you're up and lined up already, you have a quicker way of getting down the hallway versus sitting down and the bell dismissing you and you're getting ready yourself, which in some lunch periods you can't even throw your trash away until the bell has dismissed you.
So they encourage you to sit down throughout the
Yeah,
whole process?
well, yeah, basically, only if you're, getting like another drink or another snack, something like that.
So some of the exits for lunch actually do get really crowded because the people from the gym are also filtering into
Yeah.
the same hallway. So to give like the lunch kids the head start, they would be able to filter out, and then the gym kids would, because there's like a little bit of a delay in between when the gym kids are able to come out too, because they're coming from further down.
But also keep in mind the safety concern of the potential if something happens and a dean needs to get across that group
Yeah.
of students right
Yeah.
before the bell rings. It's hard to do.
You say you had another topic?
Oh, yeah, McKenna, do you want to cover it?
Yes, the student splash page. I've heard some complaints.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I've heard some complaints from my peers about the organization of it. I think that the marketing on it of student events and events after school could be displayed better, as well as the links in the center of the page. I think there are some really important links there, and I think that not a lot of students take the time to read them. So I think that if some of them were emphasized more, perhaps, then that could be a better solution to that.
Yeah, I'd like to add on just like homecoming dress-up days. We have student poster night where we set that up and, we put posters and we decorate throughout the hallways, which really helps a lot. But, in the splash page, we can put a better list of events and like highlight that, or, not many students look at their emails, but I was gonna suggest, sending out a mass email, but, not a lot of them pay attention to mass emails. But just like putting it like right when you open that splash page, a list of events for like homecoming week, for anything that's just coming up and has the importance to, really be announced.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think like every time you open your Chromebook, you see the splash page. So for some of the emergency drills, when we do that extra pop-up where you actually have to like click out of it to see the splash page, I think that really gets students to read it. So if there's something that's really important or we really want to stress like student engagement, to do like one of those pop-ups might like help us get more students to do it.
So the announcement section in the middle is just a little bit too much, is what you're saying? Things get lost.
Yes.
But do our student board members have any comments or thoughts?
I have a comment about the hallways because I completely agree with you. I come from third period gym and I'm stopped at 11:05 with the combination of 100 plus like lunch students and 100 plus gym students. I think it's actually more beneficial to maybe release the lunch students first and then release the gym students, just safety wise, because I know that if you've seen our K hallway, it's very packed. If you've seen that hallway going down from the lunchroom to from the gym, you can see that it's also very packed, and it's quite inefficient to get students from their places that they need to be in. I know in gym we're allowed to leave 1 minute early, but the deans do stop us if you're going through the lunchroom. So possibly finding new routes or either saying that gym students either go one route and they're able to go there at 11:04, or doing that 2-minute release, 1-minute release for the lunch students, so everyone isn't packed and it is safe for students to travel from one destination to another.
And like Chelsea said, the gym students are allowed to line up, whereas some lunch students are not. So I think just keeping it consistent, honestly, throughout the hours, with the lunch having different monitors by hour, some monitors allow kids to line up and some don't, like they mentioned. And I think honestly, keeping it consistent throughout the periods will at least alleviate some traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And behind them, I just pulled up the student splash page just for board members, if you wanna take a look at that, just to kind of eyeball it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of like logistics for the school?
Oh, the design of the student splash page, that is
No,
Mrs.
logistics, the flow. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be Mrs. Castillo and Mr. Slager, so.
Oh, no, I think she means like out of the cafeteria.
Oh, I thought you said the student splash
No,
page.
logistics.
You know, it must be the cricket is getting me. You know, that's really, John Greenan,
Okay, so
Matt
that's-
Bartley,
yeah, okay.
the deans really just determine that, you know, that's building leadership, sorry. I was totally misunderstanding.
Like traffic, like hallway traffic.
Right, you know, just how you flow that, how you have different personnel flow, and I do agree with, you know, we've got Ms. Kishline's report, but one of the issues that students brought up is when you have that many, you know, 400 students are on their feet, if there was any kind of safety issue, it's getting through a crowd or in a very large space. That's one of the major considerations in any high school when you're dealing with dismissal of a lunch period.
When I was in high school, I think there was a maximum amount of people that could line up. Like, just to put that out there.
Well, I'm assuming, since they were here, Ms. Castillo and, they'll take into account the comments about the splash page. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kushline.
Hi, everyone. I don't have a lot to report on. First, just want to, again, congratulate Mr. Kane. It's always nice to work with people like that. They make us to be better teachers, too, so it makes my job easy. So congratulations. Feedback on parent-teacher conference. Teachers really did enjoy the full day of conferences, being able to connect on the platform, you know, all day long, allowed for teachers to meet with more parents. Many parents I know in my day were even just taking a 10-minute break at work. I did have 2 parents on one conference, one was out of town, one was at work, so it just makes it, you know, able, wherever you're at, to be there. Along with that, staff did enjoy having the other part of your day if you weren't necessarily, you know, scheduled every 10-minute block, just to be able to, you know, maybe email a parent or, you know, get caught up on things. I know for myself, I even sent like good news emails to parents, just things that you always say you want to do, but we don't always have those extra, you know, minutes to do, really allowed us to do that on that day. So we really, the feedback was strong on the whole day being parent-teacher conferences, which was different from the past. And then just wishing all of our sports teams that are, you know, moving on to the postseason. Just remember, they're all, you know, they wouldn't happen without the coaches that put in the endless amount of time and energy, but we wish them all well in their activities. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms.
Foundation report.
We skip
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
ISB. We wanna, as Ms. Adolph comes up, do we
All
wanna?
right, Ms. Johnson.
Since we're about 1 month out. Earlier, we got this, ISB Constitution and Position Statement. Okay? You need to now read it, you know, like me, I don't read it that far ahead because, you know, you look at it. So, we'll meet before then, right?
We actually, this time, we're not, last year we met, before, this time we meet, you know, the board decided to meet the Monday after Triple I.
Okay.
So we will not meet again, so what I can do in a board update, Ms. Johnson votes on our behalf, so I can certainly
duplicate it, send it out to you electronically, and you can take a look. Typically what we've done is you send your votes to Ms. Johnson. And just to remind the public and the board, these are resolutions that your association, IASB, adopt or don't adopt, vote based on the membership. And they're almost everything under the sun, from school safety to literacy requirements. It's basically what stands politically that the association is going to take in the state.
I can't remember, did we do a Google form last year?
I believe we did, and we can turn that into a Google form. The only thing about doing that electronically is I would just have a caution about doing that electronically. My preference would be that we would send it out and you would communicate point to point, because that's almost, a Google form almost implies kind of a conversation and maybe something that I think we might want to avoid.
And if there's something here that you have some strong disagreement with, here's your chance to bring it up. Because the flow when they had a delegate assembly is, if someone has an objection to one of the position statements and stuff, they tell them, and then there's lines. So you get up in line and, this side, you give your, why I agree, and this side, why I disagree. It's an interesting procedure, especially if there's a hot topic, So, and then we vote. Okay. Oh, one other thing. If you can't find this, I'm assuming Kathy got some more. You see Kathy? Hopefully.
We can probably get
Online.
And I'll put it in the updates. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll look at the endorsements. That booklet also includes what IASB is endorsing.
Right.
What I usually send you is, here's how I would weigh in on it. This is the issue, the broader issue. Sometimes there's resolutions in there that don't impact us at all.
Right.
Preschool doesn't impact us, even the preschool that Mrs. Kishline's department operates. That they're stands that don't impact us. Last year, a big hot topic was to endorse the law that actually got passed of all-day kindergarten. Well, we might support that because we think it advances learning, but we're not a K-8 elementary district, so it's a little on the periphery for us.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Now,
Good evening.
good evening.
So by all accounts, the Taste of Lockport for the second year that we hosted it was wholeheartedly successful in its mission to represent the community, reach out into the community, be partnered with our neighbors and all of those great things. I'm exceedingly proud of the 15 people I get to represent and the effort they put into it. Some of you were there, and I appreciate your support. It was nice just to have the community come together and be gathered in support of the school. About 1,500 people showed up, gave $15. A few people that couldn't show up mailed a check, which I thought was very, very kind. So we had sponsors and just individual supporters. And I would say you knew that the community was behind us when they send the chief of police and their chief lieutenant to come and be a part of that event with you. So it felt really good to be around all these people that were happy to spend extra money. So it was, and we were delighted to be on the receiving end of that. Gross profits were about $35,000. I still am waiting for 2 bills, but it was a great thing to be a part of, and we're excited to see how we can grow that into an annual event that happens moving forward. Other than that, we are going to start working on the Nutcracker performance, which will happen December 8, 9, and 10. We're currently trying to see how feasible it would be to include the staff without a cost right now. That is And it's something that we believe we can do as just a gesture of kindness. The staff is our largest supporter for donations, so we want to honor that back to them in that small way. So, and then we are still looking for one board member. If you know of someone that might be interested in supporting the school, it's a great group of people. I feel extremely proud to be a part of that. And as a community member, I was also a part of that board, and it's a great way to support our school. Yeah.
Are you gonna do the plan again or just the plan?
So for the Nutcracker, we aren't hosting any kind of meal. You mean with the community? So right now we're trying to see if there's a restaurant that might want to come alongside with us to kind of do like do like a dinner and a show in Lockport, So that's a partnership with a restaurant owner. So we'll have to see if anyone's kind of, the timing of that. And I know reservations are funny and it's a weekend. So there's a lot of consideration that I don't understand on that, but we've definitely approached some of our local restaurants that to say, hey, it might be a great way to support, if they did a prefix meal. Again, I don't know how to help, I'd love their support and to support them in that, but we'll see.
In this case, the Nutcracker, this is a professional ballet. This is not one of our productions. Professional ballet coming in, doing a residence, three-night performance, using our space, as both a holiday thing, a community event, a fundraiser for the foundation. We are still having the Gold Card dinner for our fall play. That'll be about a month before, and towards the end with the announcements, I'll announce that and try to get RSVPs from board members. I would highly encourage you to attend. And just backing it up, on the Taste of Lockport, the main thing is really more than fundraising is having people come and enjoy being with each other in their community. That's really your vision of what the foundation can do. People just doing that very basic hometown America. I'm going to go to the city square and have a good time with the people in the community that I live with. That really happened. And that fundraising, helps with far more than scholarships. It helps with Fine Arts Festival. Next year will be a Young Hearts for Life. That's an organization that's been around for 25 years. We'll be doing that again next year. It supports grants to teaching staff. So lots going on that helps support in addition to having a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Legislative report.
Legislative report. I am not going to do a dramatic reading. I've attached this both for the public and for the board members. If board members, anyone wants a paper extra copy, I do have this attachment. This is a brief that our attorneys at Robin Schwartz wrote. You can see that again, big year, lots of legislation. Some of this legislation doesn't impact us. Some of it does, but you can read this particular bills. What's going on right now is that the House will go into late in the month and the beginning of November. Veto session, not clear. There are some things that the governor did veto. For example, he did veto the halal and kosher requirement in terms of those options in all schools in Illinois. That might be something that the legislature decides to override. We'll see. Another bill, the minimum teacher salary bill, was just passed. It'll be September 30th. It became law. We well past that minimum teacher salary of $41,000 a year in the state of Illinois. A couple of just public bills just that are notable. One interesting one that impacts board members. It adds to the Open Meetings Act that childcare can be a reason to participate in a board meeting via audio or video. So we will eventually have to update policy if a board member has a childcare issue and needs to be at home with a child or two.
Does that include their child, or can it just be?
It is directly their children, right? Another public act is great thanks to Mrs. Kishline, to Mr. Kandari. we've had a major overhaul of the Performance Evaluation Review Act, PARA, and worked very closely with Mrs. Kishline. We've come to a good place to reinterpret the evaluation journey towards tenure for our teachers. It's just too lengthy to explain here, but really great work. Another public act is public schools, starting next year, have to provide board members and all staff members trauma-informed training. How to deal with both adults and students who might be coming from a background where they've experienced trauma of lots of kinds. 2024, 2025, we also have to include in our training how to work with individuals who are not housed. So that adds, and then there are a number of bills that deal with racism-free schools, bullying and incident tracking and response, and any kind of gender-related violence. So those are all in here if anyone wants to dig into them or question just new regulations that we'll be following.
Pear, do we have to retake training or you don't know?
Do for para? I do not know. That's a really good question. All board members know that you're required to take a training in the Performance Education Review Act, Performance Evaluation, Review Act. That I will have, if you'll have to retrain, Kathy and I will have to find that out. These are major changes, so we'll get that answer for you. It's a good question.
Public comment follow-up.
Okay, public comment follow-up, and I'm gonna ask Mrs. Croy to help me with this. And I've got some illustrations. I'm gonna pass some of the paper illustrations out for board members. I'll put some of the illustrations up here. And maybe Mrs. Croy, if you can maybe join us up here. And I'm gonna reduce the verbiage, just to maybe loop back, kind of make it simple. We had two pieces of public comment last month. We had the annual budget hearing, where we had 4 individuals speak. And then we had one public commenter, Missy Chandarana. In the budget hearing, I'm gonna come back to the suggestion that was made by the 4 speakers in that budget hearing. Come back to that just momentarily. As I mentioned, I reached out to all of those speakers. We heard back from Mr. Jay Rohde via email. Board members received that email, probably should have seen that. In short, Missy Chandarana spoke in public comment about Lockport Central Campus, and she really emphasized the importance of renovation and preservation there, particularly because of Americans with Disability Act. That was something very important to her. And then also she spoke about, when I spoke with her to follow up, she didn't have a chance to add that her concern about the CCC and Lockport Academy. And I just added a comment in that she made when we debriefed, with the customary follow-up I do. They're just, a proper entrance, a proper school entrance, as she said right now. Both those are in very tight quarters. In one case, Lockport Academy, students are kind of walking by, literally where we have our dumpsters, to enter, the program that they're in. So she just wanted that registered. So, the board, last month you approved a budget. The budget is a list of expenditures that you're declaring to the community that you intend, in the coming fiscal year to spend. Well, how are you going to spend taxpayer money? Now you're in the phase, as we talked about on October 2nd, of what's your strategy as a board to pay for those expenditures? And you might recall last month we explored 4 options, and we might get into some of those options in this segment. But you really narrowed your directive to what we call option 2 and option 4. Members of the public at the budget hearing introduced another option. They made a suggestion of reducing the annual levy by a high $4.5, $4.6 million. And you're in that phase where you're brainstorming. There are many strategies that you can look at for the annual tax levy. And so certainly if a group of people come and suggest, here's a suggestion that we would make, it really is worth an exploration, and it's really worth a conversation. So I think our role is really to explore that and to get you talking to each other about it. So I'm going to pass around 2 comparisons for you, and I'll demonstrate them. One is a comparison of option two, and this is sort of our long-term view. And then the option that was suggested to us, as we look out 4 or 5 years down the line. So let me display these scenarios. We also have another option, which is you kind of directed us option 4. We may or may not talk about option 4 right now. You might say let's talk about it a little bit later. Let me try to expand this a little bit. Hopefully this is going to help. Could you explain to us, Mrs. Croy, what's the board seeing in this particular illustration? You know, this is at the top of that sheet that I just passed out.
Yeah, so I don't remember the last time that I did a 5-year projection. I don't remember if it was before or after the new board members started, or the student board members, for sure it's after. But what you're actually looking at is a graph from our software that we use to do 5-year financial projections. So it's a product by Forecast, Frontline Analytics. It used to be Forecast 5, which is why I've got that stuck in my head, so sorry about that. Forecast 5 was bought by Frontline. So that's the format you're looking at. It's a graph from that projection software. So what you're looking at here is historical data as well as a 5-year projection of what are, with everything that I know as of today, right, with a bunch of assumptions in it, what I think our expenditures will look like over the next 5 years, along with what Dr. McBride is referring to as option 2 from the committee of the whole meeting that was discussed, which is the levy as is in the budget, as it was presented in the budget, but adjusting the new property value that is in there to accommodate the estimate that I received from Will County. So it's $40 million of new property is in this. So that's the only difference than what was in the budget. So that's what you're looking at here. You're looking at a tax levy. The piece that is projected in here is what would our projections look like, potentially, with a tax levy of, I think it comes out to 6.28%. That's what this projection is, okay? There's, of course, all kinds of assumptions in any projection, so, our estimates of our salaries and benefits and purchase services, all that stuff.
And is there any board member, I just brought some copies of that memo
Yeah.
from that committee of the whole. I don't know anybody, we're saying option 2 and you're saying,
Yes.
what is option 2? You might recall we did a worksheet. I'm gonna send this around. If you need a refresher, please take one. If not, just leave it in your seat. And what we're looking at is what Mrs. Croy is always trying to do is stay steady and even and with and in a certain extent ahead of the expenses that we can project. An analogy I would use is, let's say you met someone and they said, hey, I have some annual income. That annual income grows within a certain bound. Some years it grows more, some years it grows less. But every year I spend less than my income. Every year I put a little bit of money aside so that if I have to put a new roof on my home, a new air conditioner, a new furnace, a new driveway, I can pay for that without borrowing from family or borrowing from a bank. I have a great credit rating because I have very low debt. You'd probably say, wow, that person is really doing a good job with their finances. And that would be a good description of our school district. Where we're at right now, low debt, following property tax extension limitation law, the limits that are set, staying under budget, outperforming our budget, having enough in fund balances that when we do a roof, or we do a major project, a parking lot, that isn't something that we're constantly going to the taxpayers to do an ed referendum or an operations referendum to pay for, and extremely low debt. That would be the circumstance.
So what's not in this projection is a lot of capital projects, right?
Right.
So there's minimal capital projects in here. You'll see the capital projects expenditures are fairly low. So major work that may come up on Central If no referendum is passed and no major work is done, those capital project expenditures are not in here. This is assuming operational things, so.
But anything that has to be done for life safety is in.
There's, like I said, there's minimal in here, so yeah, it's maintenance, operational maintenance, yeah.
So this doesn't have in it, and none of these projections have in it, any kind of renovation of Central.
Right.
You know, that would be a separate, these are really operating expenses, not bond and interest expenses. The board really reasonably, the only way that you can afford to do major work at Central is through issuing bonds, which at a certain level voters have to approve. So that would be option 2, the levy as it is, that's how your revenues and your fund balances would move forward into the future.
And that's assuming $40 million in
Right,
new
assuming $40
property.
million in new property.
And the original levy we looked at was 30?
Yes,
We
okay,
did,
yeah, that was the difference.
based on a revised estimate from Will County, an upward estimate.
And again, as I recall, the Will County will then bring that to an actual one, to the growth. to the
Yes,
growth.
yes, absolutely. Yes.
They'll adjust it.
So they'll adjust it.
So we also used frontline analytics to run the analytics on a just rounding it off, a $4.5 million reduction. Worth a look, right? You know, you're in the brainstorming phase, so it's worth taking a look. So can you tell us a little bit about this, Mrs. Clay?
Yes. So this is the only difference between the two graphs is property taxes. All of the expenditure assumptions are exactly the same. So if we pulled up the spreadsheets behind these graphs, you would see that the total expenditures are the same. All the revenues other than property taxes are exactly estimated the same. So the assumption of, for example, evidence-based funding, isn't reduced in this one where it's higher, those numbers are all exactly the same. The only thing that has changed here is reducing the 2023 levy by $4.5 million. So that's the levy that will be approved by the board in December. So that's the only projection that's lowered in here. So all of the other tax levies for the other years in the projection, because of course in a projection I have to estimate the 2024 levy, the 2025 levy, all the way through for the 5 years out. Those projections are as I have historically projected them based on CPI. So the assumption is that CPI is not staying 5% forever, so there's estimates in there of 4% and then 3% and then back down to the average historically, which is about 2.5. So like I said, the only significant difference between these two is a reduction of the levy, the 2023 levy. So the ask from the taxpayers in the first thing you saw was based on a 6.28% increase. This one is based on a $4.5 million decrease. So it's basically taking this number, subtract off 4.5 million.
So I can see it going down.
Yes.
Right, and board members might, as we kind of ran the analytics on this suggestion, question that you might have is why is it, why is the trend line moving, to the right and lower, right? What it suggests is the board, you would have to have, not only in the next couple of years, you'd have to have a strategy to balance the budget, to sort of fill in. One strategy would be with fund balances. But you also would have to, over the long haul, you would have to have a strategy as a board as well. Maybe you mind sharing just, why is that decreasing?
Right.
What's the nature of sort of a levy? What's going on here?
So, comparing the two graphs side by side, it looks like maybe there's a reduction of more than that 4.5 million, right? It looks like we're subtracting it out every year. While I didn't do that, it appears that way because what happens is the levy for example, as we're talking about the 2023 levy right now, where we start, because of the property tax extension limitation law, where we start because of that law, which is effectively called, it's the tax cap law, right? We are capped based on the prior year's extension. So once we reduce a levy, once the board decides to reduce a levy, you are now setting your new limit for the next year. That's where you start, okay? So CPI comes into play by taking that prior year starting point and just increasing it only by that CPI amount, right? That's the increase you can get. So once you reduce a levy for 1 year, you can't the next year say, okay, that was just one time, we're gonna go back to the where we would have been. You can't even go back to the year before. You have to start from where you lowered it to. Does that make sense? I was trying to come up with a way to explain it like without using the tax terms, and I really can't find a way, but the bottom line is once you make a reduction once to the operating levy, it permanently will lower your starting point. You can't really get that back.
You can't just jump up and down. Up and
No,
down.
yes.
Well, the only way you could is you could, you could go and, you could deficit spend, you can get operating debt, you could go to the voters and say, hey, we had a strategy of using fund balances, but we're now seeing that our revenues are getting close to our operating budget. Basically the margin between your cash on hand, your reserve cash is declining in this model. So over time, you would have to have some kind of strategy so that you don't find yourself without a reserve. And that strategy could be through loan, deficit spending, could be through a referendum. You could do an ed fund or an operations referendum that would ask the community to raise that rate above the property tax extension limitation law. You could do that as well strategically.
All right, the two grow separate. The two projections move separately. The gap gets bigger because, as you would start with, you start with $100, right? You start with one amount, and then CPI allows you to keep increasing it, right? But if you lower that amount, now you can't increase it as quickly, and you can never really get back the gap. I don't even know how to explain it any better.
Well, and you also, as a school board, one of the things you have to consider is, as that lowers, your revenue lowers over time, where will your expenses go? You do have to make some sort of educated guess of our expenses going greater than that, our expenses going lower than that. Those are things, you would along this curve, the folks at the budget hearing are not wrong. You could reduce the levy by $4.5 million. You could do that. You have to consider, down the line, what are the implications, of using those cash reserves.
But wasn't option 4 2.8, not 4.5?
Right, this is not
the
option
full-
4.
this is
This
the
is the
full
option that was suggested by folks during the budget hearing.
I see, okay.
So we can maybe look at option 4, but I don't know if there's anything,
So
that you want to
essentially,
discuss.
by reducing the budget by $4.5 million, the long-term effects of that, we would eventually need to come back to the community in some way, shape, or form as a vote to recoup that money, because we will run down our savings account essentially, and not
I don't know
have-
when that would be, but yes, by reducing the levy, we would eventually
Because it
need to do
compounds,
something.
you're right,
Yes.
and you can never recoup it.
You can't. There's no way because of the tax cap. That's the point of the tax cap, right? Like it is a limit. It's supposed to limit our increase in how much we can get. So once you decide to drop it by a significant amount, right? It depends on the size of the amount, how much of effect that is. That's all.
Question.
Yeah. Yes.
I know we're talking about potentially maybe reducing it.
Mm-hmm.
We had that ARPA money sitting in there.
And what money? I'm sorry.
The ESSER.
ESSER money. Mm-hmm.
So it's going away, right?
Yes, next year.
At some point on this line?
Yes, next year.
So how is that gonna impact that reduction?
Yeah, that's reflected in both of these. The drop off of the ESSER money is
assumption.
reflected in both. It's one of the assumptions.
Okay.
It's about $1.4 million in revenue you won't have
Right.
after September 2024.
Right.
And really what the board has to consider is what will be all the different costs you face. costs of medical benefits, dental benefits, cost of settlements with our union, cost of just the cost of doing business. You know, that's all a guess that you have to make, you know, moving forward. You know, the primary strategy here would be using your cash reserves. That would be the way that you would balance your budget. We would assume if you made a reduction like this, we can, you know, look at option 4 if you want to do that now. You would use cash reserves to balance in June. You know, otherwise you'd have an unbalanced budget.
So that'll leave us with 6 months, we talked about.
Yeah, your cash reserves would be over time, you know, it really depends your strategy in terms of your cash reserves.
So, and typically your expenditures aren't gonna drop off, right? Historically, traditionally your expenditures are gonna keep growing. The typical way you would make a significant change in expenditures would be by cutting staff, dropping programs, things like that. That's how you.
It's another strategy.
That's just, if down the road we needed to do that, that's a consideration. You deal with each one of those as it comes. As of right now, we're trying to deal with what would this look like if we were to look at this option.
And I know that, as far as board discussions, I just wanted to, have every one of you just pipe in. I know that, Luann, you've also done it, but, how do we feel as a board? How do you, each individuals, how do you feel using our cash reserves to pay for our operational expenses?
Me, myself personally, not too comfortable with that, seeing how we maintain what we have been. Yeah, I'm not too sold on that. Dipping into
It's like dipping into your savings, especially now, especially with the way costs are going up, and then we have the whole uncertainty of central campus.
Yeah.
I would just say, and in something like, all right, say our roof is leaking, all right, here, it's like, it's, it takes time for us to go out and get a bond. All the paperwork, the attorneys and stuff, and that takes like at least 4 or 5 months, and then board approval and everything, and here you can have a whole roof just cave in on you, where we would have those cash reserves ready for that.
And I think about the sensitivity of what's going on at Central right now, when it comes to how old that building is and the components that are in it. Just the cash reserves are necessary, and I know I said this at our last meeting when we had our committee of the whole meeting, but again, I've worked in 2 districts, one where we had to reduce our staff and programming by $16 million because of, the Great Recession. And then another district where we had to close a building because of deficit spending. And it was a horrific situation in both instances, just for the students, the staff, and the community, and I don't want to see that happen here.
No, and I worked at a school district too, where they used, their cash reserves for, using it for their operation expenses, and we saw the deficit going down too. And it was a shame, because we had a large majority group of people that wanted that, to use it, and the board members went with it, so, but yes.
Other board members? Other thoughts?
If I had to be honest, I didn't live through any of these scenarios that some of you guys are talking about. When Anne talks about Fairmont, when Veronica talks about Lincoln, I was 8, so.
Yeah, but now
I
you
don't
can
really.
see, you can see, like Veronica and I were explaining, when we use our cash reserves, to pay for operationals, this is what actually happened at Lincoln North, this is what actually happened at Fairmont. If we go based on that, you're gonna see it go down, you're seeing it, that's your forecast right then and there. Even though you didn't live through those times, but it actually happened. That was in the past, but now we're seeing it here, if you wanted to do it with our school district here.
I don't think we're going as extreme as 16 million compared to
But if you look at the educational portion of it, see how much it drops?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to lose faculty, and we're talking about needing counselors and training and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
How are you
And
gonna
if I
handle it?
remember in one of our board workshops, the ones we had, we even talked about getting more school counselors, more social workers for our students. And based on that, going that graph down, I'm looking at saying, you know what, we're gonna have to cut programs. We're gonna have to cut probably extracurricular activities. I mean, here you had our student government say they want more activities. Well, guess what? We can't afford it.
Yeah, we did talk about the need for more counselors because.
And social workers,
And
just
social
because
workers.
of the whole,
Yeah.
you know, that what's going on. And it's not only in our school district here, it's everywhere.
Ladies, have something you wanted to add? I saw somebody look over.
I know, what about you guys?
I go first.
You can.
I think for me, it's most important when I think about it in the case of my teachers and my counselors. I don't want their positions to get cut, and I think that they do some of the hardest work around here. I mean, teaching us, and then when you put it in perspective for our programs, I mean, I lead 2 programs. Chelsea probably leads 8 million programs. Like we care about it, and I think that programs are just as important as schooling. And I think for us, especially, like I lead Model UN, and that's an educational program that's helping students with research, debate, public speaking, and thinking about those things getting cut too are just, it's not fun.
And let me tell you, I mean, when I attended years and years ago, Triple I conference, all right? People didn't know, like, where's Lockport? They had no idea where Lockport was. And now, just recently, we go down there, oh my gosh, it's Lockport, you're from Lockport? I mean, even any spirit wear that I wear, you know, and if I'm in a different part of, you know, of the city or anything, you're from Lockport. We hear good things about our school. And that's what makes our school so excellent, you know, it's just, you know, just the way our financial, you know, we've got good financial. It's just, I don't know.
And just working in the business, you know, students that are more involved have better outcomes after they graduate. And I think that that's been proven time and time again. The more students that are involved and the more number of students that are involved. You know, people think that that students can just get into college and do amazing things based off of the merit of their grades. And that has a large part to do with it, but also it's the things that you're involved in outside of the classroom that probably make you stand out in comparison to the other people that are applying to these programs. So I would hate to see that go to the wayside for a brief relief, I guess, to say, that we would end up having to come back for in the future.
And not only that, I mean, when you start looking at that decline, and Michael, you know, you can correct me on this too, when you start looking at that decline, I'm sorry, it's the whole thing, your school is going downhill. Guess what? Community members are not gonna wanna stay here and move into it when you have a school district that's suffering, and you could, I mean, and Michael attests to it. You know?
Amazing, yeah, that was horrible.
It was.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Well, when that happens, like we were talking about the Fairmont area, it not only affected school, but the whole community, everyone that was around. You got people leaving, you got people not getting involved, there's businesses not even wanting to hang around, so it really affects us.
It does, and it even creates it even more of a downhill because people are leaving.
Yeah.
You know, so it even
Something
creates
better.
even that little deficit going down, it's gonna create it even more because you're not getting the revenue coming in.
Can I say something? I mean, these projections are for the 4.5 million that some people suggested. Would it look vastly different, vastly similar if we took the, you know, the option 4? Because that was what.
Yeah, and I know we have a really big report for you tonight. Do you want to take a peek at the just a little bit more on the option 4 strategy? Actually, Mrs. Croy has a slide. Would that be a good time right now to do that, or?
I mean, like, I just want to see if it would be different, because in one hand, the projections that we're seeing is the 4.5 million, but for option 4, we have a more, like, you know, it's 2.8, it's still pretty big, but.
So this isn't exactly that 2.8, because as I think that Ms. Maxwell attached
So why
an
don't we-
addendum to your, to that memo that's in your hands from the whole
Yes.
committee of the whole, there's an addendum piece that said that option 4, where I suggested the 2.8, we would still have part of that have to be permanently, so the abatement strategy, in which we could pass a full levy, where the board could pass a levy at one level and then abate a certain amount back to the community, so that the net effect is a reduction or a lesser amount. there's a limit to how much we can abate or give back without it permanently affecting the operating piece, okay, like the 4.5 million. So what I'm illustrating here is not the 2.8, it's our debt service amount. So it's 1.4, only because that's the amount of debt we owe for the next year, okay? So that would be the piece where it wouldn't permanently affect any of our revenue, ability to generate more revenue, right?
For our student board members, can you explain what an abatement is?
Yeah, essentially, we would just be giving a portion back. An abatement, you're just giving a portion back to the community. So instead of reducing the levy up front and saying, okay, instead of approving 50 million, we're going to approve 45 million. That's just a reduction. But instead, it would be the board would separately approve a tax levy of whatever it is, 50 million, whatever this comes out to be. Then another separate resolution they would approve to say, okay, we're going to abate or not ask the community to pay for a piece that they've previously paid for, right? So when we issue debt, when we issue bonds, so the bonds that we're paying off currently, we issued a long time ago in order to do the most recent thing was the most recent addition over here with the
Coffee shop.
the coffee shop and the other classrooms, right? And some media center stuff.
Yeah.
That piece, so the debt that was issued with that, at the same time debt is issued or bonds are issued, the tax levy is set to pay for those bonds. So that's automatically on the tax bills for taxpayers. So what we would be doing in abatement is we'd be saying, I know we already said we want the taxpayers to pay for this, but we're gonna say, no, they don't have to.
Oh.
We're gonna pay for that piece out of our operating funds.
We're gonna do our debt service
Out of
out
our
of the
own
operating
funds.
funds.
Correct.
Rather than rolling that into levy. Now, what you could do under this strategy, we just, call it option 4 abatement scenarios. What you'll notice if you compare it to the other sheet is your revenue is flatter. Because as you go along now, you still would be using some cash reserves because if you abate your bond and interest payment, it doesn't mean you don't have to make your bond and interest payment.
Yeah, we still have to make
right?
them. We can't be.
You still have to make it, you would be using cash reserves, you wouldn't be using as much cash reserves. You would lower that levy amount and have that impact the next year. But as you go along, this model presumes in 2023, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that you're going to abate. You would have to do that resolution every year and basically say to the taxpayers, we will take our bond and interest payment or operating bond and interest payment out of reserves or current revenue. We'll abate that payment back to you. So you basically you're flattening your income a little bit more than that first scenario that you saw, while providing some tax relief.
Right.
It's just a different strategy to give some property tax relief in essence. Understanding that, thus far, I mean, kudos, I think, to the district and many of the leaders in the district where we have outperformed our budget. We've been able to outperform our budget, be very, very tight, and, we're just more conservative. We're not as liberal in our spending, maybe, 4.5 might be a more liberal approach. This is a very conservative approach. We tend to be very conservative in our spending habits. And so this acknowledges that we do a good job at performing inside of our budget because we take a very conservative approach.
I mean, when we're not projected to be growing, wouldn't it be then more beneficial to flatten? I don't have the years of experience a lot of people in this room have.
No, actually, that's an astute connection, Mr. Navarra. We're not projected to grow like anything. Will be it to us in 2026. Suddenly, we have 2,000 people we didn't expect. We don't see that happening, right? It's all about your judgment, what you think will happen in the future. This is not as comparing to the other graph, the other proposal. It's not as quick as of a decline. It just kind of flattens your income out. And the good news for you tonight is you're not deciding anything tonight. Right now, I want to respect your time, and I know we have a good, we have our annual presentation to you of our academic achievement. That will take some time this evening, so I want to respect your stamina. But this is just another, set of options to consider, the option from the budget hearing, the option for the levy as it is with the new property, this option of a strategy to lower, the line of your income, in essence, betting that you've done a good job as a board in a conservative way of outperforming your budget. You preserve your levy amount, you return the bonded interest payment to the taxpayers, your income doesn't grow as quickly.
So it would seem like this would probably be the leading choice right now then, wouldn't it be?
You would have to decide
You
these
would have to
choices.
decide.
I don't know,
The
I'm
board
speaking to
really
the
has
rest of the
decide
board,
that.
but then this would be the leading choice. No, nobody feels.
Not if you're gonna be using using operation expenses to pay your debt service.
Right, and like I said, you don't have to
Yeah.
decide
No.
tonight, you have, till our December board meeting, really. And really what, we're presenting these scenarios not to, only because we're in the brainstorm. Really, any good idea we should consider and run it through a financial model, right?
So the November board meeting, the board will have to approve a tentative levy of some sort. That's not to say it can't change between the tentative levy and the final, right? But a tentative levy by law has to be approved in November. We have to have official notice, depending on what the board wants to, need to present and what the board wants to approve. If the recommendation is anything over 5%, there has to be a truth and taxation hearing, there has to be a legal ad, all of that stuff. So it really depends on what the board wants me to propose for the tentative.
So we'll, before that November 20th meeting, we'll be looking, there's gonna be some committee meetings, we'll be looking for some direction from you. You'll see a little bit later in the agenda, I'm recommending that we do another committee of the whole on November 6th. I know that's a request. It would give us another chance to really sit down and receive direction from you, without some other agenda items like, this large report we have in a few minutes.
Is November 6th the finance and facilities?
It
Okay.
is.
Yeah, okay.
So we would do another committee of the whole.
Okay, cool, that's what
Like we
you were
did,
saying.
we did
Alright.
before. And I want to thank you for saying cool, because
I'm sorry.
even though I think, setting a meeting is about the nerdiest thing that I could possibly do.
Finance and facilities.
But, if the board's open to
So
that,
cool.
the calendars are open.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks
Mrs.
for the,
Thank
good
you.
questions and discussion. Thank you. Public comments. Any regular open meeting, members of the public and district employees may address the school board in the public comment section of the agenda. Individuals appearing before the board are expected to respectfully follow the guidelines of policy 2:230 and policy 8:30 available upon sign-in. Public comments are important to the board. However, it is customary not to respond on issues until time has been taken to gather information and discuss all options. Lack of action or response at the time of comment does not imply lack of interest in the issues brought to the board. First, we have Ms. Tammy Hayes.
Hello, I'm Tammy Hayes. I'm here to talk about a couple different things, but I'll just real quickly touch on this because it's fresh in your minds, the budget. So when you approve the budget that included a levy, you must vote on a levy because you can't run your budget without a levy you assumed you would ask for. Now, I'm just sitting here and I'm not a finance major, but I'm gonna tell you a couple of things about the way that projection looks to me. Every year, our houses are assessed again. As I spoke at the finance committee meeting, I'm sure you guys remember that, my assessment's up 24%. What are the assessment percentages that we used in that graph would be my question. There's also gonna be, you're gonna lose people in Illinois. We're losing them now. It's like the third, I said this 2 weeks ago. It's the we're in second for the state being left the most. It's because of this kind of a thing. The other thing to really, really consider is this savings you're talking about, it's not your money.
It is a stipend given to you, taken from the taxpayers to run a school. If it were up to me, your budget would end with a zero. No cave-in is gonna happen if you're properly doing your maintenance. Now, if your maintenance are failing, then maybe you need to hire some new people, or you need to rearrange some stuff, you need to figure out what salaries are going where. But when you talk about, you know, that this is gonna go down and that's gonna go down, this is gonna go down, I think that you have to remember that you all approved a budget that already had a levy in it. And I left after public comment last month, not at the finance meeting, but the previous one, and I have to say that I was a little disappointed in some of the board members that told other board members that they weren't allowed to vote no, or they shouldn't have voted no. They're here, elected by taxpayers, to use their smarts, their decision-making, and their opinions to make votes. They shouldn't be shamed for voting because this has never happened before. Do you mean to tell me that the entire time some of you have been on the board, people have never voted no? Your board members have never voted no? That's terrifying to me. It's terrifying to me. And every time I think I need to give up, I'm reminded why I don't want to give up. So the second thing I'm here to talk about today is the library books. I did send an email to Dr. McBride and Dr. Lori Christofara and the school board. Now, I know the school board, really, they all just go to Dr. McBride. So please share this with your school board. I did print out 5, so I'll give each one of you, I'll give 5 out. Basically, I'm here about these library books. Now, there was many people from the community talked, and there was a discussion maybe possibly about I'm summarizing my email, so please reread my email, excuse any mistakes if I made any, about possibly a committee that maybe could look into these books and decide, get parental involvement, get community involvement to decide if books were too explicit for certain ages. There is an obscenity law. It's a federal law. And it states that you cannot transfer explicit or obscene materials to anyone under the age of 16. Central is filled with 14-year-olds. And after these meetings, and people have come here and read, and you can go on YouTube, look up school board explicit books. You can watch for hours parents reading these books to school boards. It's embarrassing, and it's really quite terrifying. When I went to the walkthrough, this is how the books that are banned are displayed at Central, 14-year-olds. They're on rolling carts with a nice laminated poster. It was a pleasure to burn. Frequently banned or challenged books. Now, of course, if you're really teaching children what things are, it can't be banned if it's actually in your library. The most recent one I saw on YouTube was a book called Identical. And I was listening to the parent talk about what was in the book, and it was pretty graphic, explicit, if you will. And so I was lucky enough to go right on Lockport, look it up, and there it is. So here's the thing. These books are here, and I want to know, it was kind of discussed that maybe a committee could be formed, maybe you guys could reach out to some people. I want to know from the school board members.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
And any staff and or any parents, community members, has anyone been contacted about possibly getting a committee together? And if you haven't, I implore you to please maybe reach out to your superintendent, your staff, your curriculum, your assistant curriculum director. Reach out to these people and ask them, is anything going to be done? Has anybody emailed you? Maybe you guys could FOIA how many emails we've gotten on explicit books. Maybe there's none. Maybe I'm the only person who thinks it's shocking. But thank you for your time.
Next, we have a Mr. John O'Leary.
Hello, everybody. So I'm here because I heard about the tax levy being increased. And when I heard about that potential tax levy increase, I thought, wait a second, this is a potential big problem. And let me explain to you my world and how this potential tax levy increase would affect people. I have a dozen rental properties in Lockport, modest small houses and some 2 flats. That's my income. I manage these properties. If there's a tax levy increase, it's most likely gonna result in a property tax increase. And in my world, who pays the property tax increase? My tenants pay the property tax increase. My tenants cannot afford to pay more than they're paying. I'll just run through off the top of my head who I'm renting to. I've got a 2-flat on 8th Street. Susan, a grandmother on a fixed income. She can barely afford her $700 a month rent, and I'm grateful to have her. And if property taxes go up, who's gonna pay? Susan's gonna pay. Right below Susan, Cass, single mom with a couple kids there. She's paying $850 a month for a modest 2-bedroom apartment and a 1-car garage. And if property taxes go up, who's paying? Cass is paying. She can barely pay her rent as it is. She's living hand to mouth. My man Art, he's renting a small 2-bedroom house on 18th Street. Now, he injured himself at work. He's been off work a few months. Quite frankly, he can't afford to pay $1,000 a month. And with the property tax increase, who's gonna pay? Art's gonna pay. Next to Art is Cassandra. Again, a single mom with 2 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment paying $850 a month, and I try to keep that rent low, and a property tax increase will come out of her pocket. And she's gonna say, John, I can't afford it. I'm gonna say, I can't afford it. You gotta pay it. Well, what's it going for? Well, it's gonna go to the high school. And as I look at the high school here, this place is magnificent. This place is spectacular. An Olympic swimming pool, a rock climbing wall, a coffee shop, a fitness center, magnificent buildings, a football field and grounds. And what will happen is this luxurious entity will take money from poor people to do more luxurious stuff. That's outrageous. That is outrageous. I think about these poor people and how they're gonna pay their taxes to do more luxurious stuff here. And it's nice to have luxuries, but a lot of people can't afford these luxuries. My tenants cannot afford these luxuries. And a tax increase, it's not optional. They will pay. And if they don't pay, they're out. Where are they gonna go? I don't know. So please, think hard about raising a tax levy or increasing property taxes. Please, look at your budget, which seems to me to be generous, and make it work. Especially if you've got, I don't know, a $70 to an $80 million surplus fund for a rainy day, which is a good idea. But think about it. You've got that money set aside. You've got magnificent recreational and spectacular facilities here. And I'm gonna have to go to some poor people and say, you're paying more rent or you've got to go to pay for this. Please show some budgetary constraint. You mentioned that you're being conservative with spending. Really, be conservative. I would implore you, a tax increase, a property tax increase, a levy increase is not an option.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
And I just thank you for hearing me out. Thanks.
Notices and communications, we have none. Freedom of information requests, there were 4 of them there. Moving to our approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 2nd, 2023 board meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Are there any questions? Roll call.
Shimon Rogers?
Yes.
Shaw?
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the open session meeting minutes from the September 18, 2023 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions? All right, roll call.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes from the September 18, 2023 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
And it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Are there any questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, we have no board expenses. All right, moving on to the treasurer's report.
I know the board has plenty of other reports and more important to talk about the students, so I'm gonna be really quick. Things that the board should notice in this month's board treasurer's report. The auditorium project is complete finally, so this will be the last time
It
you'll
was
see that.
great at our first band concert.
Yeah.
You know, no flashing lights, no lights going off.
Yeah.
Sound was great.
So the interfund transfer report, the expenditures listed down there in the transfer summaries for that particular project will fall off of this. We do have one payment outstanding still on the roof, I think, so that'll stay until that gets paid. Other things that you'll notice, as you look in the financial reports, you'll see over the next couple of months, you'll see more investments listed out as we invest the tax money that we collected in September, right? So you'll see that grow. The last piece would be in the upcoming action section, like we've already talked about. You'll be seeing a tentative levy proposed next month. You'll be seeing a final tax levy for 2023 tax year for board approval in December. And then there's a few other things of upcoming actions as well. Does the board have any questions about any of the treasurer's report items?
Do I have a motion to approve the September 2023 treasurer's report?
Motion approved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shimon Rogers and second by Dr. Shaw. Roll call.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. Superintendent report.
All right, I'm gonna have a few friends join me tonight, and if we can try to maybe, as my colleagues position themselves, maybe on the corner over there, we can kind of keep the screen, we have a lot to show. You know, just a couple things that are not related to this student performance, and also just be attentive. You know, Mrs. Lopez Caniva, if we need to take any kind of break, you know, let us know. We don't want to have you, we don't want to haze you by spreadsheet or by graph, but we have some important things to share. A couple things, you know, just coming up, I really would support what Mrs. Kishline said. You know, when you see somebody like Bill Kane, what an amazing accomplishment for our district to have the top science teacher in the state. You know, right here in our ranks. You know, just an outstanding quality human being for sure. Central, we just to let the board know, we are back at the drawing board, working very closely with DLA. You directed us. You know, we kind of started in the committee of the whole. Let's look at if you did every single solitary thing you would want to do to renovate Central. You sent us back to the drawing board and said, hey, we probably need a more modest consideration. So we're working on that modest consideration. At the same time, we're working on what financially would be the ask of the community if we did renovate Central. You know, and just remind the board that the mission there is to properly prepare that building so that it can take Porters for the next 50 years, really, and avoid building a $200 million, $180 million new building. all the financial talk we've had this evening. Renovation, we're trying to come in half of what new construction would be. So that work is going on. I am proposing, if you could check your calendars, November 6th, as a committee of the whole, come back, really talk about all these financial issues together, and get that done. Apologize, Dr. Green is representing us this evening at the State Principals Conference in Peoria, so thank you very much. Wanted to note Dr. Green. Why? It's National Principals Month. And typically we do a resolution. We can do a resolution of appreciation next time we get together when Dr. Green is here. But I did say, it is true that I said to Dr. Greenan after 14 years of being a high school principal, when I offered him a position as a high school principal, it is true that I said to him, if it doesn't thrill you, it will kill you. And that is true. And I will debate anyone around that the high school principalship is the toughest job in America. In education. I don't know if it's the toughest job, period, but in education. And very appreciative of Dr. Green, very appreciative of Dr. Green and their assistant principals who are doing the work every single day. All right. Before I get into the achievement report slide deck, I'm going to pass some of these things around. Sometimes it's just a little easier to have it in front of you. And I want to just help the board understand at the end of the month on October 31st, if you have this is hole punched if you want to put this in your binder. This is an illustration of when you get that school report card, what matters to the state. What is the state saying are all the things that it will use to come up with a performance indicator for you, what they call a designation. And I just want to open this up. This is for high school. Kind of get this on the screen for you of what really matters to them. And you're going to see what's growing in terms of what matters and what's diminishing in terms of matter. So you'll see number 1 and 2 academic indicators, English language arts proficiency and math proficiency counts for 7.5%, 7.5%. That is the SAT. So the SAT, when we take that, we'll have so many students, so much work has gone into helping our feeder schools and our own schools will take the PSAT on Wednesday, but the SAT now, significantly less weight in what the state is giving it towards our total designation. And then also we have a standardized test for science as well, that counts for 5%. Graduation, you'll hear me in my presentation really emphasizing, graduation now counts 50% of the total designation we receive. It's a very important metric. We're very happy that the state is revising that metric because, as you know, I'll show you a graphic. The students who went on to CCC were counted as non-graduates by the state. This is the last year that that'll be the case, but it still impacts us, right? Truly, we have about a 99% graduation rate, but we're listed as 93 because those students who are required by law to stay with us are counted as if though that they're students who didn't graduate with their class. English language learner proficiency is 5%. Another metric that's gained weight is chronic absenteeism. What is your attendance rate? Climate survey, that's the 5 essentials. And then another metric, 9th graders on track to graduate. In the future, college and career readiness and participation in the fine arts will be also a metric, but coming online much later. Just want to see when the school report card comes out, my calculations say that we will be listed as commendable. Exemplary is they literally list all of the schools by these matrix, and wherever the cut line is for 10%, that is exemplary. So just want to kind of set that context. So a few slides to share with you here. Your binder. Oh yeah, thank you.
Before you go,
Yeah.
I know you say 1 and 2 is SAT.
Mm-hmm.
Last month and month before, you said something about them looking at AC.
They are and on Wednesday. There's actually an Illinois State Board of Education's meeting at Glenbard South High School. I think Dr. Christopher is going to try to attend. I can. They have they're starting listening sessions. I signed up for a listening session, feedback session. By June 30th, 2024, the state has to name either continuing at the SAT or a different provider. But this year, the contract with SAT is up. The state is, rather than just renewing that contract, they are doing a request for proposals.
And then my other question is, a lot of the colleges and universities have stopped looking at those.
That is the case.
So why are they still?
That's a really good question, Ms. Johnson. I think their response is diminishing. You know, there was a point, for example, under No Child Left Behind, where the only metric the state was required to look at was the ACT or SAT, 100%. No other metric. So I think by diminishing it, it's one way the state's honoring that.
Okay.
Dr. Brett,
Yeah.
with the SAT, if we continue our contract, would it be fully digital? And how would that compare with the ACT?
They're all really, so say, digital now. So the College Board who runs the SAT has gone to a full digital format. So you're going to see that in the future. I think it's a product of COVID. You know, those testing services said we can't do that, and then they realized when they had to do that, and now they are saying we like to do that. I think that's what's happened. So this, and I really apologize. I realize we did not get this to our student board members, so we'll fix that, okay? But really, this 120-page document, I don't intend to start on page 1 and go to 120. This is really for you and the public. This is like our annual earnings report. You know, this is over the next year. It's presenting you formally all of the metrics that we'll look at to go back to assiduously to understand the trends and trend lines of our students. Tonight, I really wanted to focus this on your strategic plan, which is what we did with District Management Group. And if there's any board member, I have a few copies of the slides. Sometimes it's nice to have a paper. You know, just wave me down if you would, like that. Yep, I'll send this around, and again, I hope I just did that correctly. So let that get around. This is also on our online as well, for the public too. And if it's something that is invaluable, just leave it. So I want to start. I hope that Ms. Johnson is very happy. Ms. Johnson, every year we have talked. Yes, Ms. Johnson, the SAT has a growth report. For years you wanted this. The ACT had a very, very refined growth report. This is for evidence-based reading and writing. And the good news that you can see is we did not take the PSAT 8-9. It wasn't offered because of the COVID pandemic. So we're really starting spring 2022 with this group, PSAT 10.
I thought we took the old.
No, we didn't take anything that year with that group. And so what you can see is the range that you want to hit. I'm going to show you a table with some benchmarks. We want to land in the green in terms of growth from one year to the next. So the green bar really represents meeting or exceeding the benchmark that the SAT has set. So our students in evidence-based reading and writing, they were met or exceeded as a group the benchmark in spring 2022. Going over to spring 2023 on the SAT itself, they moved with enough growth to again hit that benchmark, even though that benchmark is higher, which is really good news with reading. So if you take a look at this chart, how many students were tested, in spring 2022, they exceeded as a group the benchmark by 10 points. Benchmark they were supposed to hit was 460, they hit 470 as a group. In spring 2023, the benchmark they were supposed to hit was 480, they were supposed to make 20 points worth of growth as a group. They hit 510 as a group, they made 40 points of growth, double what the SAT would expect this group of learners to do. So there's good news here on evidence-based reading and writing, and obviously that is very important because everything we do is related to reading. There isn't anything that we do that's not related to reading. So I think this is very good news, and I think what you're seeing is, as you probably heard, and it is the case, this is very good news with reading, where this year, this group of students have the lowest ever coming out of the pandemic SAT scores. You probably read it. The good news here in reading and writing is, growth that doubled the amount that they were supposed to have. So very, very good news. Math. There's good news, and then there's something to keep our eye on as well in this growth chart. So again, we actually started at approaching the benchmark. In 2022, for a number of years, I've said that math is what I would call our lagging indicator. It lags behind reading, evidence-based reading and writing. We've asked you to make a number of investments in math and science to address that. As we moved over, as we grew, we landed right on the cusp of meeting and exceeding. And I want to show you the growth chart because we had a tremendous, we actually had more growth in math than we did in reading. And I think the growth is what's really significant because I think what we're starting to see take a toehold here are some of the work that our math department is doing in their professional learning community teams. And I think innovations like Compass, Math Plus, and Science Plus are starting to take hold. So in 2022, our students as a group, the news that concerns us is they did not hit the benchmark. They hit 460 and they were supposed to hit 510. So that should spur us to some action that you've already taken this spring. Spring of 2023, they were supposed to hit 530, they hit 510. But the suggestion is 20 points of growth, and our students actually made 50 points of growth. So what that's telling me is that we are heading towards the right direction in mathematics. Let me just let that sink in for a second. They didn't make the benchmark, but the growth metric, to your point, Ms. Johnson, is 20 points. Our students made 50 points worth of growth, and that was in a single year. So I would suggest some of the things that we're doing in mathematics are really starting to take a toehold in a way that I've been, looking for and sharing with you for a number of years. It's very exciting. Probably the most exciting thing I think academically that's happening in our district. If I pause, I'm just making space for questions. And you might say, well, wait a second here. The state is counting the SAT less and less. Maybe we won't use the SAT in the future. I would always say the SAT doesn't tell us everything about a student, but it also doesn't tell us nothing, right? Especially when you're looking at growth. The good news is in both these categories, our students are beating the growth that's expected of them. They're growing more than the national standard. Wanted to give you just some feedback on advanced placement dual credit and ASVAB. That's the test that we use in our nation for military qualification out of high school. There's a graphic at the top.
They're not considering that in the.
They do not. The ASVAB does not get factored into the school
Did
report.
it used to?
I'm not aware that it did it.
It's still part of the college and career readiness indicator.
It's-
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
The way that's figured with so many multiple points, it's just one factor, and the students have to have more than one factor, right? So.
Okay.
Right, and there's kind of a graphic at the top, which you have a goal in the college and career readiness is you want to see students hit a 3 or above, and you want students in a dual credit class to get a C or above. Well, in that group, 72% of our seniors hit that benchmark. The first time I shared that benchmark with you was 35%. That was 2 years ago. So you moved from 35% being college and career ready by that benchmark that you set to 72% being college and career ready. So that's some enormous growth. Advanced placement, we had 730 individuals take tests. Total tests they took, 1,244. Our pass rate was 71%. But important to remember that those 884 passing are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. If we scope in just the graduating class of 2023, 26% earned that credit. Dual credit, you have 539 students who earned a grade that made them eligible for a credit at JJC. At Wilco, you had 104 students who earned a credit at JJC. And on ASVAB is actually a test that different branches of service The Marines have the highest score that you have to hit. The United States Army has the lowest score you have to hit. We had 6 students who took the ASVAB and qualified for every branch of military service. So just an interesting, college and career readiness post-secondary. Graduation, want to scope in on this. I think this is a metric you should be very proud of. 945 students graduated. 30 did not. Of that 30, 28 were in the CCC. Those are those students who stay with Dr. Huntington's programs between 18 and 23. As a school, we only had 2 students who returned as 13th graders. So 2 students who did not graduate with their class. It's for a total of 975 students. So it's a very, very strong metric. If you do the calculation and you pull our CCC students out, we're going to have about a 99% graduation rate. So one of the things I really attribute this to Ms. Kishline's point, we have a tremendous amount of staff that are just invested in credit recovery with students who are not moving along, sometimes due to all sorts of factors in their lives. And really, I think this metric shows so many, at many, many different levels, from advanced placement and honors to some of our most challenged students, trying to address the needs of struggling learners. And we're going to scope in on that a lot more. Freshmen on track, these would be current sophomores right now. At the end of last year in Dr. Green's building, we had 944 who were moving towards graduation, 50 that were not by their grade performance, meaning they didn't pass 5 classes. One interesting comparison, our trend is, at the end of freshman year, we had 50. We generally then will have 2, 6, 10. And those are just some of the efforts that are going on really to work with students. And there's just a lot of work that goes into those more challenging situations.
Those 50 were not on track.
Those 50 were not on track.
No, but those 50 that were not on track, did they come in way below what they should be?
Yeah, you know what, it is likely that they came in with either some social or some academic struggle already. And our journey is to try to rehabilitate that over 4 years. And so far, the graduation track record has been strong. And we work all the time with our feeder districts to try to address that. But that is a really good point. What would I like to see? I'd like to see us do some K through 12 mapping with our center schools. I think curriculum mapping to see if there's anything that we're missing or repeating. Right? I'm going to turn some of those general metrics over, and this goal, you might say, wait a minute, where did this goal come from? Some colleagues who are going to share, and just for the entire board, 3 years ago, the board had a question. Your question was, when we were talking about a strategic plan, you were very interested, you noticed as a board how many programs we have to help struggling learners, and you wanted to know what's the return on investment of that. We worked with District Management Group. They created a 5-year plan with us that had 4 goals. What we want to do tonight is to report out on you, where are we in year 3? Where are we with these goals? What could we say about them? So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cristofero. She's going to share some things on this very first goal, and just tell me when you want me to move the slides.
Sure will. Thanks, Dr. McBride. So that goal 1 has a lot of educator ease in it. So we just thought as we went through the goals, we would try to just make them for the general public. And this goal is really saying it's about what is the teacher doing in the classroom? What kind of lessons is the teacher designing to help all students access the learning? So, you've put a lot of things in place to support the teachers with doing that, and so that they can have more diverse learners in their classroom than they've had in the past. And so, remember back in COVID when you approved something called Porter Academic Time. I don't even remember what the C stands for now.
It's Porter, assistance
and
connection.
Yeah, assistance and connection.
Yeah, so you approved that space, and then people liked it so much, students, teachers, that you approved putting it into the collective bargaining agreement and opening it up and making a time space in the day for students. And then for the 22-23 school year, you approved some plus classes, and then for this year, you approved even more. So I just want to remind you of the things you put in place to support teachers in having more diverse learners in their classroom and designing lessons to try and meet those learners. And this is really a story about our science classrooms. If you go to the next slide. First of all, we were kind of looking at data to see, this actually was early on in my tenure here, it had to do with how are our kids doing on SAT, what's going on. And so one space we saw about that might provide students with more access was our science classes. And we had predominantly 2 science classes that were happening at the sophomore year, and that was a class called integrated science or a class called chemistry. And so we asked some questions. Was integrated science on grade level, meaning is it challenging our students where standards say they should be? Would it meet the rigors of this new lab science requirement that the state had put in? And lastly, was it helping students access the most challenging science courses in their future academics here at Lockport? And so we look closely at those numbers, and if you can look closely at the numbers in integrated science in 2018-2019, we had about 50% of the students in that class who were earning D's and F's. Conversely, if you look down and see chemistry in that same year, you're seeing about 22%. And I'm not really going to go into chemistry honors, even though it's listed on here. So gradually over the year, Dr. Green was big in on this work, as was our department chair. We really looked at students, and we thought, like, could we accelerate some students from integrated science, put them into chemistry, and what kind of support? So lessons, but then clearly there were things like Compass. So if you look down at the bottom, these are last year's numbers. We still had about 43%, 50% that are getting D's and F's in that integrated science. So you might say, oh, Lori, that's not really much of a change. But in the next time, I'm going to show you actual numbers. And down at the bottom, though, this is really exciting. In chemistry, we went up to about 30% getting D's or F's there, right? So we pushed more students in to a more rigorous class that we knew was going to align with this lab-based. And that really one other thing, too, we know majority of our students go on to college, and colleges are expecting them in the sciences. They've had biochem and physics when you're in high school. But guess what? If you're going into the trades, most of the trades require some chemistry knowledge. So the next slide, Dr. McBride. So here are what the real numbers look like. So I was telling you percentages because that's one way to compare. But you can see in 18-19, we had a total student population of 215 enrolled in that class. And you can see the numbers that were D's and F's. Conversely, last year we only had 52 students enrolled in that class. And you can see where the numbers were there. But more importantly, through the supports that you put in place, our chemistry numbers went up 459 to 533. You might say, Lori, that doesn't account for all the students. Guess what? We had more students going into honors chemistry too. So I'm just putting that out there. But if you look, most importantly, our chemistry numbers of students who had failures stayed relatively the same. So we pushed students up. We supported students in taking this class through the supports you didn't put in place. And I think for teachers, that provides them with the support, knowing that when a student needs some extra time, guess what? They can put them in Compass. When a student needs something a little bit more specific and a little bit more time, they can go into Plus. And so Dr. Huntington is going to talk a little bit more about this structure we created.
Thank you so very much. And so I am talking about Goal 2, and there's been a lot of work in making sure that we have systems in place, and we like to refer to them as skill and will interventions, right? So we're looking at students who need some academic support, but also some students that struggle with the will. Do they want to do the work and supports? And so we had a year-long process where we worked with our guidance department in order to build some of those will interventions in addition to those skill interventions that the board has provided with our plus classes. So we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk through math, specifically similar timeline to the chemistry. We had the PAC time as well, then the compass, and then that additional math plus. And so what I want to talk specifically about is our integrated math 3. So we can go to the next slide. So this is a very advanced math class. And when we looked at the data over the trend, you can see that our trends are going in the right direction. So what happens when a student gets assigned to a plus class is they do not meet a criteria, a mastery point in a smaller area, one that's really important, that if they don't master, they're not gonna move on to the next concept and get that. So we pull them in and provide those intensive re-instruction with math teachers in the class. They're able to reassess and we can determine if they have achieved mastery from those content areas. So if you can see over the course of 3 years, math grades are going up in the rates of A's and B's. Next slide. And what's most exciting is that reduction of F's in that class. I don't think that we've ever seen that low of an F in Math 3. And that's really coming down to the really intensive and targeted interventions that have been implemented in that coursework.
So with goal 3 in our district improvement plan, we wanted to provide interventions with content experts, our own content experts, our teachers. One of the problems that we faced for decades and many schools faced is access to those kids, because so many of our kids could not stay after school because they had commitments, and we could not get the kids here in the morning because they didn't have a ride. So we knew as a staff that to be able to access these kids, we had to find a way to embed this time into our day. And so we really had to kind of rethink how we could get access to kids. Over the years, over the past 5 years as a board, you've really afforded us the opportunity to find ways and to be inventive on how to get access to kids. That year that we were in COVID, we did have that PAC time, the Porter Assistance and Connection time, where we went and found those kids who weren't getting online. They were not engaged. And we went out and spent the money, the resources to really try to get them connected. And then knowing that when we came back in school, we had to put this into our schedule. And so in the spring of 21, we sat down with our staff members and took a look at how does this work best? How does this work best for our school system, for our staff, and for our students? And out of that became the birth of Compass, and then also our PLC time. And so you also as a board said, how do we do this? Over the years, you sent many of our staff members to the Solution Tree conferences, and we were able to really cultivate our PLC time and our Compass time as well. What I wanted to show you in the next graphic, I think is pretty profound. With this new Compass, you know, teachers and students needed access to each other. And so we jumped right in. I'm gonna be honest, John and I were both very nervous about the implementation of this. We've talked to Dr. McBride about it a lot. But as we jumped in, we knew it was the right thing to do because we saw the success that we were having. So this slide shows Compass usage for second semester, just half a year ago, second semester last year only. And it's broken down by departments, and it's also broken down by campuses. And so in order to sign up for Compass, our students and our staff sign each other up. So a staff member could say to a kid, okay, you need a little extra help, I'm gonna sign you up. But students also have the ability, if they don't feel comfortable, God bless you, if they don't feel comfortable, they can sign themselves up. So this data, like I said, is only half a year. It's only second semester. And so think back, when we didn't have this, trying to get access to kids was so tough. But in one semester, there were 348 tutor sessions that took place. When we looked at those numbers, we were feeling pretty great about our investment of time during the day. for our student interventions and for getting kids the help that they needed. So we thought we wanted to show this to you, over 67,000 tutor sessions for kids in one semester alone. So as we took a look at, as you saw in the last slide, every department is utilizing this time, and they're really looking at targeted interventions. So teachers can help their students that they have on their rosters, but a lot of our staff are finding ways to now share students. So the example that we're gonna give you now, we talked about a math and a science with English 10 last year, so our sophomore English class. What those sophomore English teachers did in their PLCs is they constructed common assessments. And with those common assessments, they were able to pinpoint where students did not meet and on what standards they did not meet. So not only the students, but what standards. And so they differentiated in different interventions. So one teacher would take this group of students who didn't meet that standard, another group of teachers could take these students who didn't meet that standard. And they were able to go through, put interventions in place, reteach, and reassess students to help them master those skills. So as you see here, this is the data over 3 years. We significantly reduced the number of student failures in English 10. And as you know, English is huge. As we go through and analyze transcripts of students who did not graduate, it all comes down to English because they have to have 4 years of English. So this was very significant for us. Our PLCs right now are really focusing on student work, and with that PLC work, it really allows us to get down and identify individual students. And it really facilitates the learning with interventions and helps promote student success.
I wanted to just thank you all for your time so far, and give my apologies. Mr. Fergelak apologizes that he could not be here. He was planning on providing this, but he took a little detour and is hanging out in
Not feeling well.
not feeling well. So we wish him well and hope for a speedy recovery and having him back. But I will try to do him justice with his goal, which is looking at our SEL and providing that systematic approach to supporting students. So we kind of talked about those will interventions earlier. Again, PAC time, the guidance spent a lot of time determining how can we better support students. They had the same problem as the academic teachers. Kids didn't want to come to their groups and do those things because of the dedicated time. But we also needed a tool to monitor how students are making progress. And so the board did an investment using Panorama. And we've been able to utilize Panorama as well as the consultant from Solution Tree that we worked with all of last year, developing programs and systems for students with will needs. Next slide. So I'm going to show you, this kind of bounced off there, but I'm going to show you one Panorama slide that we're looking at. So if you look at supportive relationships at Lockport Township High School, one of the questions there was, do you have a teacher or an adult at school who you can count on to help you no matter what? And we had 80% of our students respond positively to that, and that was up 4 percentage points. And you think, 4 percentage points, isn't that great, right? But if you shift over and take a look at the national norms, I was blown away that we are in the 90th percentile in a school district this large. That is amazing, that our kids are feeling connected and supported. And so we're seeing that growth, and I think part of the opportunities that we have to work directly with students and Compass is supporting this level of connectedness that students are feeling here at Lockport Township High School. One of the biggest areas, though, that we have the most concern about is this self-efficacy at school. That is the students' confidence that they can get it done, right? When it gets hard, I always tell kids, we can do hard things. It's easier to say than to do, okay? So we're working on how can we support students to help them believe in themselves that they can accomplish bigger and better things and take those advanced placement courses and they're not gonna die, right? And so, right, did I get that clear?
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you can see, this is our greatest area of increase since we've implemented the survey, and so we're really proud of that. We are working on things like targeted groups where we have students with executive functioning groups where the students are gathered together into like groups and the counselors are working with them in 8 and 6 to 8 week courses, it depends, some need 8 weeks, some need 4 weeks, some need 6. So they're working with them to build these self-efficacy skills and the self-management, as well as those executive functioning skills, right? Because if you can't get yourself organized, it's hard to think that you can accomplish world peace and world domination all at once. But as you can see, we're really working hard on these kind of goals, and we're gonna continue to monitor. We'll have another assessment, I think, likely in November. Thank you, Dr. Christopher. That's
Next slide.
next slide.
So, we wanted to highlight what the, kind of the strategic goals that came out of our, work with district management group, and overall, it was to make sure we could have more diverse students through, lesson planning or instructional work, and having the right interventions and ensuring that students got, support from teachers who were experts in their content area, as well as SEL or supports to grow students' confidence in themselves. And so all of these things that we've worked on in the past few years have set us up really well for our work with equal opportunity schools that you approved just recently, about getting students into some more challenging classes because we have supports in place. Undoubtedly, we'll probably have to grow some and find some other ways to support students. But now we know that we can frame those supports around the same kind of 4 goals that you already have in place. With that, it's thanks, and any questions or anything in this big document? Let's go.
Can I ask something?
I think Ms. Johnson was
Okay, you.
Last year,
last year.
I can't remember what it was, I don't know if it was critical thinking, or it was
Inference.
reasoning, inference. So how did we do, I know,
That's a really good question.
we were gonna work on that, and then another thing, we were trying to push more students into science,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get that extra year. So, the first one first, how we do on inference.
So if you take a look, if you go to page, I just opened this up, page 56 in your binder, it sounds like I'm telling you to go to your hymnal, and we'll all sing together. I would say that we are still, that's an area where we're still struggling. On evidence-based reading and writing questions that the College Board would say are easy, which are facts, details from a passage, our students across the board are doing a great job. When you get into the medium and the more challenging, we're starting to see some difficulties. So if you're on page 56, you'll see where you see an asterisk and you see a pound sign, you'll see a place where all of our students, like question number 26, which was medium, that's analysis and science. That's an inferential question. Regardless of ability level, most of our students struggled with that medium level question. If you kind of go down to question number 32, hard. It involved words in context and analysis in history and social studies. Again, we only had 17%. Now, that lined up with the state and with the nation, right? Our students are not off, if you look at any of these. They're not off what their peers in the country, in the state are doing, right? But still, it really marks a target for us. What I think, we need some language across the curriculum that describes these tasks. What are we doing when we're inferring? Probably need some reading across the content areas. Working with an individual named Tony Frontier this year, and we're going deeper into that.
Did we improve a little bit?
Myself, I would say we had the growth in reading. We can't get the growth, the heavy growth that we got in reading without getting some improvements. But what I'm still seeing is when I go through these questions, this item analysis of our performance,
We gotta work a little bit.
those are the same questions that keep coming up. Analysis in science, analysis in social studies. So yes, we had improvements. Yes, we exceeded the growth benchmarks. we still have work to do, that's what I would say.
I only ask because when I was working for retired,
Mm-hmm.
there was that big gap. When I was
Mhm.
in IT, there was that big gap, the students couldn't.
Right, it's closing,
Okay.
but I would be a happy superintendent if I walk down the hallway and some student says to me, it's seventh period, please stop talking to us about inference. Like literally, when in every single class, someone is pointing out you're making an inference. We all teach that, everyone teaches that, we probably just don't give students that vocabulary to recognize that from PE to science, I'm asking you to do an inference. Observe 3 or 4 facts, draw an idea from it. And just the more explicit you are about that, I think the better students do. Hey, Mr. Navarro, I think you had a question.
So I was just really curious as to why when it comes to the slide, like the compass usage.
What, do you remember which slide you're, oh, the,
They're not marked. All I know is it's like that huge table.
Yeah, right here.
So why is the
Slide 16,
compass,
Dr.
why is compass usage under Dean's for total of East 2?
You know why?
Compared to Central?
Yeah, because they didn't necessarily put it into the responsive scheduler. The deans would just go and pull the kids that they needed to see, so we didn't get an accurate count. That has since been fixed, though. When they do deans groups, they are now putting that into the responsive scheduler. So
Okay.
the deans have seen more than 2 students, I promise.
I it's just a little concern.
But during the compass time, if they didn't put it into the system to call for the student that way, they usually sent for passes. We had to get them out of that habit and into scheduling them.
That was typical.
Right, that was it.
How are the EOS cards turning out? I know the survey went out last week, right?
To seniors,
Yeah.
underclassmen are
Oh,
not taking it
okay.
until Wednesday.
Got it.
And it'll take a couple of weeks for them to process it,
Cool.
like 3.
Okay.
Guess we're gonna make them take the PSAT test and then.
Yeah, I heard
do
about
the-
that.
Yes.
I really like your goals for I can't talk.
That's okay.
But you know what I'm talking
Yes, I
about. And shameless plug here. Our AP Advocates group just started, and we have 31 mentors who are going to be going out and helping underclassmen. So I can't wait to see how we could be working together. And Mrs. Featherling has been working really hard. We've also been in conversation with Richland and putting a program in there to help them with their PSAT and then also choosing some classes as well. So just very excited, very excited.
And these questions, oftentimes we include this because what we're doing is, as we think about our students, socially, emotionally, behaviorally, what is your orientation to your academic work, right? All of us at some point, I believe, woke up this morning because we're here. We had work ahead of us during the day. And we did that work, but we also had a human, social, and emotional, and behavioral reaction to it. Enthusiasm, motivation, dread, concern, panic, anxiety. And what we're interested with students, and we know that this is what sustains students after high school, in college, in the military, in a job, is are they able in a workspace, in a college campus, to cultivate supportive relationships? They can't do it alone in any of those spaces. Do they have an orientation where they cultivate within themselves a belief that they can solve challenging and tough problems? We as maybe more experienced learners can all call on that. So we're very interested in learning about where our students are in their journey towards that. All right, well, thanks so much. That is my superintendent report. And why don't we stay in place?
I was gonna say, we got
And given the time, I was gonna pull an audible, Mrs. Lopez, with our information reports, but I'll let you introduce it. You've heard a lot of information from us, and we might approach this the way we approach our maintenance report. We have a curriculum report, contains some course titles, social studies, some title changes, some course changes. We have a principal report, briefing you on some overnight field trips and obviously maintenance report. We really wanted more, just out of respect to your time, to approach it. If you have any questions about these reports, rather than us continuing to present, are there any questions that you have that we can answer?
How many students do you anticipate taking the Spanish for Heritage Learners 2 course?
Can I get that answer to you at the board curriculum committee meeting?
Sure.
That's next week, right, Dr. Christopher?
It is on Monday. That will give me time to give you the accurate information. Because I know I have that, just not on top of my head right now.
Oh, yeah.
You say in any of those reports?
Yeah, in any of those reports, if that's okay to kind of streamline.
Some of the students alluded to it earlier about you moving the needy
Yes,
machine.
yes,
And
it's
I
very
know-
popular.
I took it together. You said that, IDHS wanted you to do some other stuff.
There was a bill for halal and kosher food. Is that what you're referring to?
No, you said that, in there it said something about IDPH. Wanted you to do some other restrictions, some other things because of that, like build a wall and do some other things. Is that the only?
So, yeah, Bill, I'm assuming wrote in his
What's that?
maintenance report, is that what you're
Right.
talking about?
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry, I was,
Because of where they moved the panini line, it's now inside of the staff cafeteria, and it needed to be separated from that, so we were putting like a kind of a wall
Partition.
partition in
Right.
there. Yeah, and they needed some ventilation, and so we had provisional permits to be able to get that stuff done.
Does the, Department of Public Health have to come in, or they already came in?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
they've
what
already
I'm
been
saying,
in.
yes, he had them come in to be able to evaluate the space and make sure we're permitted for everything we need to be doing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cause I know they'll be picking them.
Yep, and they've worked with us with allowing us to keep going with it while we're getting that work done.
Okay.
Yeah.
is there anything you want to highlight, Dr. Green, anything?
Dr. Green and I can't thank our staff and the students enough about how wonderful homecoming was. It really was phenomenal. From poster night, you know, the kids alluded to it, we went back inside for the class assemblies, which the amount of spirit and energy in the gym was phenomenal.
It was more fun inside.
Yeah, it's great. It was great to bring that back in, to the outdoor assembly, to the dance. You know, 2,700 kids, they were phenomenal. You know, it was an exhausting but wonderful homecoming week. And then with the sports, we're winding down fall sports here, so some very exciting times. Winning some conference championships, had sent some kids to state, and the rest of them hopefully will do well as well.
And I would say just, you know, I will tell you, there's two things. When I talk to principals and superintendents across the state, we held, you know, 3 assemblies, 4 if you count the dance. And I will talk to some of my colleagues who will not assemble their students for one of 2 reasons. Either they can't count on the student behavior in a setting where you have 2,000 students together, in another setting where you have 4,000 students together, or they can't count on their staff. Their staff is fatigued, they don't want to get up into the stands, they don't want to supervise students. And when you look out at these events, you just see the miracle of students doing what they're asked to do and having a fun time doing it, and staff doing you know, that as well. And we're just, you know, we should just feel great about that. That's the environment.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I did look at your presentation, with your analogy to Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Oh, you that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift will make you a better leader.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, Beyonce had more sales, so I also make a shout out to Beyonce as well. And you know, in that presentation, I'm just suggesting I think women in leadership are leading us to a different way of leading and deciding.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, this is in the curriculum report. I'm not sure if we can
That's okay.
But I have a question about the AP seminar. I know that AP research is usually paired with AP seminars sometimes in some schools. I wonder, I asked somebody about it, like my sophomore year, and I was wondering if we're considering taking that route. I know a lot of students who do AP research, and they've conducted brilliant like curriculum and like brilliant research that just, I think it would be really beneficial for Lockport students to maybe take part in. And I know there's some staff that's already like done some like conferences on it as well. So maybe we could look into it possibly.
I don't know if that's a question or an endorsement. As it pertains to this class, just this one class for next year, right? Because we only put classes before the board that are going to be offered in the next school year, right? So AP did something where they broke those two apart. A lot of high schools, when they introduced them, you had to be offering both of those. And then also they did something on the back end so that AP seminar could be offered as a sophomore level English class. So because when you have all these electives in place, you have to figure out where can students take those. And so sometimes in English, when you have to take 4 years of English and it might not be a state acquired English course, that presented a challenge, but the state kind of answered a challenge for half of it. Chelsea, that's what I'll say. Yeah, so I don't have an answer for the other part, just a ringing endorsement from you.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to spotlight many things from the maintenance report, but just the kind of thing you see on this, and the public might see this: install new infield for varsity baseball field grounds. And just 2 points on that. One, that is the type of major landscaping work. There's no other way. The entire infield was dug out and recomposed. So that is expensive. And that is how we're using your fund balances. And you might think, oh, wow, that's quite a bit with that baseball field. But I want to point out what underlies that is that we oftentimes think about the A fields as a park for the community, from pickleball to this field. We have a relationship with Bodome. They play a lot of indoor sports. They allow us to use their indoor facilities. We reciprocate, and we played 80 youth baseball games at that field. And those 80 youth baseball games and all sorts of weather over the summer took their toll. So one way we recommit to the community is by, we literally, if you saw the A fields at the end of the summer, they were on their last leg. And this is just one way that we preserve something that really is something that our high school students can use, but also a ton of youth baseball players were on that field throughout the summer playing it. I can't remember a date, but I didn't see a game. It's really amazing. So that's just kind of reinvestment that we made in that field for everybody, not just for our high school players to have a great field. Those are our reports.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on to our consent agenda items. Just need a motion for the approval of our consent agenda items number 2 and number 5. So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and seconded by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Roll call.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Navarro,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Simone Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, next, do I have a motion to approve the school state maintenance grant application? Motion approved.
Second.
Second that. A motion by Dr. Shimon Rogers, and second by Ms. Lopez Caniva. Are there any questions to that?
That grant, it's not the same as school funding, right?
No, it's not the evidence-based funding. And it's also not the school construction grant that we hope that we're at the top of the list when it was frozen, and we hope it comes back. It's not the same. Yeah, it's just helps with maintenance.
Yeah, it's usually energy related projects, right? Like energy savings or efficiency improvements, things like that. And this is an example of additional funding Mr. Thompson regularly seeks out, so.
Okay.
But this, for some reason, in this grant, the board has to approve it. We apply for other grants, the board doesn't have to approve our applications, but in this case, this one of the requirements is the board has to specifically approve it.
Thank you. All right, been motion second, roll call.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jamal Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Shaw,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes.
And do I have a motion to approve the copy paper bid?
I move.
Second. All right, it's been motion by Ms. Johnson and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Are there any questions?
I wanna make a comment. One of the,
Question?
I wanna make a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
Our paper usage is going down.
Going down.
That's a good thing.
It's going down because of these Chromebooks.
True.
All right, okay, roll call.
Jamal Rogers,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. We have no policy updates. All right, announcements.
Announcements, hey, tomorrow night, 7:00, fall concert, choir concert, good time to see, getting a lot of fame, you know, OTR doing interesting things. We have a young woman, Olivia Minogue, she is on The Voice.
Yes.
Team Niall Horan, you'll never go wrong going with an Irishman. You know, well, you know. Wednesday, 8 a.m., I'm gonna be at Crema Coffee, just doing a little community coffee. If you know, even student board members could join the community there if we have some drop-ins. November 6th, and I apologize, I hope I've been saying November 6th, but, you know, I asked Ms. Maxwell to see your availability to do a committee of the whole again, and really, the idea there would be to go deep with the levy, go deep with Central. And then Thursday, November 9th, this is one of my favorite events, if you haven't done it, student board members, you're invited too. You know, it's our gold card dinner. We've really grown. I think we have 500 gold card members now. We invite them. I don't know how many people are coming, but it's a great night where we have a dinner, our senior citizens in the community, and we go down to see the fall. So this is a great night. So just a few things coming up.
All right. I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Travis and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you.